Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kelsey and I'm here today to do a quarterly wrap-up. So this is my first time doing a quarterly wrap-up, but I figured because I'm not doing monthly wrap-ups anymore because I'm doing a lot of vlogs, I figured a quarterly wrap-up is a great way to just know my stats for the past 3 months, which I love to talk about, and then the best books I read and the worst books I read. And I think that that's a great way to like really sum up my reading for the year and have like a nice track record while also having these vlogs that fill up the rest of the month's content. Before we start, I do want to say that you might hear my kids like shushing sound machine in the background. He's taking a nap and I need to film this, so you're going to hear that, I think. I don't know. But let's start off with my favorite subject, which is the statistics. So for the first 3 months of 2025, I read a total of 42 books, and that comes out to roughly 14,959 pages, which is incredible. I'm so happy about that. And divided, that comes out to the month of January with 9 books, February with 12 books, and then March, I don't know what happened, I read 21 books, which is really great. I'm having a lot of fun with my reading this year. Some things end up being like more average than others, and we'll talk about that with my overall rating for the year. And then just in regards to how that comes out in audiobooks, I read 362 hours of audio. Not every book I read is on audio, but because I am a new mother, so most of the books I read ends up being through audiobooks. Looking at this statistic, 43% of the books I read have been under 300 pages, and I think a lot of those is the manga I read in the month of March. The other average is about 300 to 500 pages with another 43%, and that makes sense. That's a pretty much an average book size for me. And then 14% of the books I've read have been over 500 pages, and most of that I think is Brandon Sanderson. In regards to the overall pacing of the books I'm reading, 56% of them have been medium paced, so I think that's normal, that's pretty average. 33% have been fast paced, and 10% have been a slower paced book. And that makes sense. I don't tend to go for more slower paced book. I think sometimes they really end up boring me, so it makes sense that I'm not leaning towards that statistic. Medium, fast, that makes sense. I think I'm enjoying really engaging books this year, and most of that is due to the fact that I am reading them on audio, so to keep my attention it has to be more of an engaging plot. So when we're looking at dividing that out, like I was talking about, 62% of the books I am engaging with is audio, and when I'm doing my stats I make sure to count the books only as audio, even though I might be reading them as well. 19% of the books I've read have been that pure print. I read it with my eyeballs in a physical book, and then 19% are also digital. Again, this might be most of the manga. I also read a couple of arcs. I've consumed some things solely in physical media, and that's what you see there. So the 362 hours is audio, and then I have 4,228 pages purely with my eyeballs. When we're looking at fiction and nonfiction, this is part of my goal this year, to read a lot more nonfiction, and then that's at least 1 book a month. So what we're seeing here is a graph of my total reads and not really monthly, but 86% of the books I'm reading is fiction. That makes sense. Fiction is the books I consume the most, but 14% of the books I'm reading is nonfiction, and I think that's well within my goal. I've read at least 1 nonfiction per month and continuing that into April. So my goal is pretty consistent, and already the nonfiction, I think, books I've read by this point last year is already increased. And then again, if we're looking at the ratings of the books, my average is 3.66. I think that kind of makes sense. I read so many books that a lot of them are likely to be pretty average, and a lot of the books I do consume is backlist, so it's books that I have heard about over the course of the years, but that don't necessarily reflect the reading that I enjoy right now. We have, I think it was 1 or 2 books that aren't rated. These often are biographies, books I read for work, that kind of thing. Then I have a couple 1-star. We'll get into those. Not that many 2 stars this year, which is pretty good. Then we have a larger chunk in the 3 to 3.5 stars. So those are pretty average books for me. We have a lot of 4s and 4.5s this year because I find like not every book is perfection. However, I am enjoying them, so they tend to fall into that range. And then we have a couple of 5-star books, which is really great. So I'm going to get into those right now. The first 5-star read I had this year was The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I read this for the Professor Kelsey's book club, the first book club live show of the year after I came back from giving birth. This follows the city of New York as it is divided into people, the boroughs that reflect New York, and they are dealing with this enemy in white. So a lot of the discussions of this book are on gentrification, the loss of immigrant communities, and how they have to like come together in order to defeat this evil. Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, the Bronx, and Staten Island, I think, are the chosen like 5 avatars to represent New York, and they're the ones that have to sort of come together. One of the critiques of this book is that it's really heavy-handed. However, I think this is really necessary in today's like political climate. I was so enamored with the way that N.K. Jemisin was writing this and how heavy-handed she was in the discussions that this book is having, that's why I loved it so much. I read it just after Donald Trump was elected. For me, this is a really needed discussion. I just really loved it. It's a fun like superhero type of book with a very interesting discussion attached to it. Then I also read Empire of the Wild by Sherry Demeline. I don't know where it is right now in my room, but this follows the story of a woman named Joan whose husband Victor disappeared a couple of months previous to this book. And one day when she is like sort of hungover in a Walmart parking lot, she sees that there is a pop-up like Christian ministry happening, and the reverend is or looks like her missing husband Victor. However, when she confronts the man, he has no idea who she is. And this is a take on the story of the Rogaru or Rugaru. I don't know if it's like a French word. Rogaru, I think, is the way it's like properly pronounced. And this is a like werewolfy type creature that haunts Metsi communities. And the story is a discussion on the way that Christianity is used to control communities paired with this werewolf tale. And I think it's really interesting. Obviously, the books I'm giving 5 stars have heavy-handed political discussions, especially in reflection of what is happening to our current society. But they are also the books I think that are the most important, and I'm happy with what I have read this quarter and how I'm really enjoying these books. So those were my 2 5-star books of the last quarter. And then in regards to the worst books I read so far, they were Winter's Heart and Crossroads of Twilight. These are books 9 and 10 in the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. I am currently making my way through the Wheel of Time series in order to get to the books that Brandon Sanderson wrote, because one of my goals for this year is to read almost every book I have on my TBR that Brandon Sanderson has written, and to get to the Wheel of Time books that he's written, I have to read the Wheel of Time. Now, if you've been following my channel for a bit of time, I really am not enjoying the Wheel of Time series. I thought it was going to be a series that I was really going to enjoy, and I do enjoy classic fantasy books, but I do have to say I am pretty surprised at how much I'm not liking the Wheel of Time series. I did enjoy the first 3 books, I think, and since there it's been really downhill just because I find these last few books to be insanely repetitive, and the gender dynamics that Robert Jordan presents in his books are really annoying, and I just find his characters overall to be really annoying. However, I have heard that I am out of the slug now, so I think I have book 11 next, and that is the last book that was written by Robert Jordan. Then I move into the Brandon Sanderson books, which I've heard are a lot better. I can see that because I just think Brandon Sanderson in general is a better writer than Robert Jordan. So I'm hoping that I will enjoy the Wheel of Time from here on out. But these were and have been my only 1-star books for the year. I'm so fed up of the series and so petty about how much is overwritten and how much of these books are not necessary that I had to give them 1 star because my experience has been so annoying. But if you're a Robert Jordan fan or a Wheel of Time fan, like, please leave me alone. Please leave me alone, okay? We all know these are slogs. Let me get through them, and maybe I'll appreciate the series as a whole later on, okay? But going along with that, one of my goals at the beginning of the year was to read through the Wheel of Time series and at least read 1 book a month, and I have been doing that. So in terms of goal progression, we love it. And then we might as well speak about my goals for the year, one of them being my nonfiction goals. So I did mention that I have read, I believe, at least 1 nonfiction book a month. And I think I've been doing that. So I can confidently say that that has been going well. And then in regards to my classics goal, I wanted to read more classics this year. I didn't necessarily set a quantifiable goal. I just wanted to read more. Now, have I done that since the year started? No, but I do have video ideas that I plan on doing to incorporate more classic books. So that moves into the final discussion, and I want to talk about the videos that you can expect for the upcoming months. So in the month of April, which is this month, you have this video. I plan on doing a Hunger Games book, and one of the clips I plan to film right after this, so it's really exciting. I've been dying to film this. The books like Yellow Jackets, so that's where I read, I guess you can say, like cannibalism books, because my ADHD hyperfixation right now is Yellow Jackets. After that, in May, I'm going to be doing a video called Trying to Be a Student Again. If you don't know, I have a degree in English literature and I used to read a lot more classics than I do. And I've been like craving just reading a classic book and taking notes. I don't know what's happening to me. You would think like being a mother is enough, and I'm like, no, I want more challenges actually on the daily. So I will be reading some classic books for that. I haven't made an executive decision on what I'm going to be reading, but I think I'm going to tackle some of my shorter classic books because I have plans to read larger classics later on in the year. Then I'm going to have a book in the month of May where I'm going to be buying books from local indie bookstores here in Montreal. I mentioned this in my last video, but because of the tariffs that Donald Trump is implementing around the world, books are going to be more expensive here in Quebec. So the reason that this is maybe a more localized issue here in Montreal is because in Quebec itself, we have the highest taxes in Canada of 15% on all products. There's some provinces in Canada where books aren't taxed. Unfortunately, that does not include the province of Quebec. So we have a 15% tax on all books. If there is an additional 25% tax on books, this means that at the cash, our books are going to be 40% higher. So my phone died during that rant about tariffs. But basically, if you can, if you're in Montreal, support local bookstores. Then moving on, we have the author taste test I'm going to be doing for Olivia Blake. I already like Olivia Blake, but what I'm trying to test is if I like every single one of her books. I read the Atlas 6, I think last year or the year before, fell in love with it, bought and pre-ordered all of Olivia Blake's books for the next 2 years. And quite frankly, that's a little bit ridiculous. So when I got Gifted and Talented in the mail, her new book, and I haven't read some of her old stuff, I decided that I'm going to do a little taste test, see if the Atlas 6 was a one-off because I didn't like the other books in the series, or I didn't like them as much as the Atlas 6, but I did really love Alone with You in the Ether. So I kind of want to dabble and see if I like her other stuff. And then I also plan on doing a dwindle down my YA TBR. This is a new series I'm starting on my channel to get rid of the YA books on my TBR pretty much. I have so much YA and I'm just not picking it up. So I really want to dwindle down that TBR, and the books for that video are going to be sequels that I have on that TBR. So that's a lot of fun. Then in June, I plan to do a reading vlog devoted to V.E. Schwab's newest release for Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. V.E. Schwab is my favorite author of all time, so I definitely will be doing a reading vlog for that. I have another Finish a Series with Me. That's another series on my channel where I finish series, and I plan to do the Farseer trilogy because I want to read more of Robin Hobb, but I'm stuck in the first series. I didn't really love The Assassin's Apprentice, but I think for this specific video, I'm going to actually reread the first book, which I haven't done in any of the videos in this series, but I think I need to just give it a proper chance. And I don't think I paid attention as much to the book, and I just really want to see if it is a 3 stars or if I enjoy it more this time and then continue on. And then the final vlog for the next quarter is to try to find a 5-star read. I'm very excited to that video because I have collected some interesting books for that video. So I'm just excited to read it overall, even if I don't find a 5-star within that video. So that's what you can expect the next couple of months. And I think, unless I have something else to say, that's where I'm going to end this video. Please let me know down below how your reading year is going. Good? Bad? Have you been achieving your goals? Let me know. If you would like to follow me on any of my other social medias, I do leave a link down below to my Twitter, Goodreads, and Instagram while they are still there. Of course, I say this at the end of every video and I don't want to get into another rant again, but our world is slowly being controlled by billionaires who are turning into oligarchs, and most of them control the social media and the news that we are receiving every day. So slowly, with each and every passing day, it's making me more and more uncomfortable. I have been tinkering with deleting a lot of things, but if they are still down below, you can of course follow me there. And of course, because it is the end of the video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. It does wonders for my channel. It makes me feel really good. And that's it. I never know how to end these things, so I will see you next time. Okay, bye!